So the first thing that I'd like to point out is the fact that you're going to notice Timekeeper will show up in your or in your Sage 100 menu as any other standard Sage 100 module. The reason behind that is due to all of the modules that we integrate with, we don't want you to have to double enter anything. So when you initially install Timekeeper, there is a utility that will allow you to migrate data from the modules that you're integrating with. So for example, I'm integrated to accounts receivable. I don't have to key in all of my customers again. All I have to do is migrate or import my customers from accounts receivable, and I'll be able to access them from both ends. Now I typically like to go through the Timekeeper options only because I like to show everyone the flexibility that Timekeeper offers. Once again, it is key that you know you won't have to change your business processes. It's the other way around. The software will accommodate to your existing business processes, and you'll see the flexibility. You can see that I'm integrated right now to accounts receivable and payroll. It's not a must. You decide. And once you do integrate, it'll explain what exactly will happen with this integration. So you can see the billing will be done through AR. In a separate process, payroll entry will also pull in Timekeeper entries. So it's a brief explanation of what will happen when you integrate. Your Timekeeper period, you can see either calendar or fiscal. And I'm not going to read through the whole screen, but as you can see, there's flexibility as far as the comment lines, capitalization. I'm not integrated to job cost. And since I'm integrated to payroll, I have my posting cycle and the date ranges. Now here's where you have several really nice options as far as data entry, because now you decide if you'd like the billing source to be from where. In this case, for my presentation, I chose from the employee, but you can always change this. The default time entry format can be either decimal or clock, and you can see that you can set up default minimum billing, and then default billing, default billing time increments as well. Do you want to require a Timekeeper project or not? And would you like to lock approved work in process? And you can see the other options here. Now we were talking about the approval process. In my presentation, I am requiring a manager approval, which means that as an employee, I will not be able to post work in process because I have to have it approved by a manager first. And the system will not allow me to do anything other than have my manager approve it. You can require secondary approvals. Remember I mentioned that you can either have a customer or a salesperson approve. So it's very convenient. One of the things that we like to do, as I mentioned before, is offer this secondary approval to our customers because you cannot imagine how many billing disputes we can avoid with that. Timekeeper. When I refer to Timekeeper, please know I'm referring to the web entry screen, and you will get to see it during this presentation. So you can see there's a little bit of information here for you as far as adding a logo to your screen, etc. If you're integrated to payroll, you can see that you have the option to allow salaried employees, set a default hours per day, summarize payroll lines, the calculation period. You have options to whether or not you're going to allow for overtime based on hours. And then terminology. This is really nice because, for example, some people will call employees team members. You can change that, and the terminology will flow out throughout the system. Before I go to the entry screen, I just want to briefly go through the project maintenance. And I'm briefly going to show you a little bit of the activity maintenance. You can see that the billing rate in this case is not showing its grayed out, and that's because I'm billing by employee rate. The status is still active. You can always change it to hold billing or closed. Some people don't want to actually have these invoices out. Depending on the project, we're not going to invoice. It's one of those ongoing projects that we want to wait for. You decide if you want to override activity, and you decide how. If for this particular project you have budgeted hours or amount, you can set it up as well. Just briefly to show you how you will be able to keep track and view history of this particular project. And if you do choose any particular work in process that was already entered, you can drill down all the way into that. As far as the activity maintenance is concerned, you can see that we have the activity code could be up to, depending on the integration, up to 20 digits. Your activity can be either time expense or reimbursable expense. Unit of measure, you decide if you want none, time, or miles. It can be billable, no charge, or do not bill. And you can include a billing rate if you'd like. Because depending on the security you give your employees, they can change the billing rate option right on the entry screen. Not most people do that, but you can lock billing option and lock billing rate, as you can see here. As you can see with this activity, the modules that I'm linked with is accounts receivable and payroll. You can view history depending on the activity, and then your detail. You can always go in and check that. Instead of going through each one of these, I just want to point out the fact that you have holiday maintenance, word substitution maintenance, you have an exception maintenance. And briefly with the utilities, I just want to point out the fact that you have these options where you can purge detail history, purge summary, recalculate summary. The Timekeeper import is basically to bring data from other modules. Timekeeper allows you to create crystal reports. We have several that are out of the box, as you can see here. The story I told you about our employee who was not able to attend for a while, and we had to print out his project history report. We were able to see everything that we needed to find out regarding the project he had been involved with, call his clients, make sure they were okay with the fact that we were assigning another technician, and everything went on business as usual. So let's go straight into Timekeeper data entry. Now remember, I'm integrated with accounts receivable, so I have information that was already imported regarding my customer, projects, and activities. You can see at the moment I don't have any data entered. And you'll understand why I'm showing you this in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and enter data with today's date. Before I do so, you can see the different options on the entry screen as far as being able to change employees. You can create filters based on customer, project, activity. I like this particular view, but you can change it to a summary view. See that? And I'm going to go ahead and choose one of my customers. Now these are the customers that are existing in accounts receivable. I have a project that was previously set up for this company. And remember, I said I didn't require a project, so I could have skipped that. And now I'm going to go ahead and choose an activity. Now notice how I have time activities as well as expenses. And I said I wanted to use the employee rate, but I gave myself permission to override. You can always limit your employees, of course, to override this. And notice how I have the different options. My bill option, again, I gave myself permission to do this, but you can limit access to your employees. And I'm going to say we were out there for 7 hours. You can include as much of a description as you'd like. And when you decide to invoice, there's an option that tells you, that asks you whether or not you'd like to include the description details on the invoice or just the heading, the top line. So right now, I'm entering time through Sage 100, which means I am taking up a Sage user license. Say, for example, I know this project is going to go on for about a week, and I don't want to have to keep going in and keying in the hours or anything. I know how long I'll be out there. I can click on this recurring button, and when I accept it, it's going to ask me for the dates on which I'm going to be working on this project. So I'm going to start on the 27th and end a week from today, which would be the 6th. It'll ask me if I want to skip weekends and holidays, and I'll say yes. And just notice what just happened here. I have to go to March to show you, but there you are. You don't have to key in one at a time. Now say, for example, on the 28th I was there, and you know what, I was only there for 5 hours. I can always go back and make changes, and I can always change my description. So this is a different test, and accept it. The change was made automatically. Now I want you to keep a close eye. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 entries. They start on the 27th and end on March 6th. We are going to log in now to the Timekeeper, the .Timekeeper, which is the web interface. Notice how all I had to do was go to a URL address and click on this icon. Now all I have to do is type in my username, user ID or remote user ID and password. Notice how I have the different entries here. The same that you saw within Mass 90. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to close out of the Mass 90 screen, and we're going to enter some time using the web entry screen. Now remember, this entry screen, the information I key in, it will be flowing back live into the Sage 100 screen. Most people ask what it will take to have the web entry screen set up. I can tell you the best thing to keep in mind is that if you have eBusiness Manager from Sage, then we require that. And that would be the link between the web entry screen and Sage, your Sage screen. If you do not, then you're going to need a Providex web server. Please ask your reseller for additional information. The Providex web server will then serve as the link between this screen and your Sage 100 screen. So let's start here. On the 27th, we have one entry with 7 hours. Now I can edit that information if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and change it to 4 hours. And then I'm going to start a new one, a new entry here with something different. I'm going to say we were there for 8 hours. Oops. Once I accept it, notice how it moved to the left side of the screen. Before I go back to the Sage 100, I just want to show you a little bit about the different lookups that you have on the web entry screen. You can see the sort options by date or customer, by time and expense, time only or expense only. The manager is able to log in using the web entry screen as well. So at the moment I'm logged in as an employee, but I'm also a manager. So I would have a list of employees here that I can access. Notice how when I clicked on the employee information, the entries came up. At this point, I can go ahead and accept them, approve them all, or clear all of the entries. If I was given permission to view other companies, it will list the companies that I have access to. And then say, for example, I want to see an hour summary. It's available for me here. So I'm going to go ahead. We've already accepted this. I'm going to close out of this entry screen for now, but keep in mind we have 2 entries from the 27th that we did not have on our original entry screen with Sage. Now the reason I had to get out of the Sage entry screen is because that's the way it refreshes the data from the web entry screen. So now when the Sage entry screen comes back up, you're going to be able to see the data that I just entered. Let me just bring the rest of the data up. So you can remember this is it, and we have, this is from the web. And again, you can always go back and edit this information. Test it from page 100. Now, I had mentioned to you that the remote screen is identical to this screen. So The screen that you have in front of you right now would be your Sage 100 entry screen, your Sage remote screen when you're disconnected, and then all you would have to do is synchronize. Okay, so we finished entering time. Let's enter a quick expense, and I'll do it on the 28th. And you can see it's as easy as that. If you give your employees access to time as well as expense, then they will be able to choose. I'll choose mileage for now. And let's say it was 80 miles. This client was kind of far. And see how they have the markup percentage or amount if they needed it? So you can see the rate sources from the activity in this case. Now we have time entered, expenses entered, and just to prove a point, I'm going to go back to the web entry screen, and that expense should also be showing up there. So the live communication is back and forth. It's not just going from the web to Sage 100. It's also going from Sage 100 over to the web. See, and I can also make changes here. So it really wasn't 80 miles, it was 70. And I'll accept it. And now that I go back to my Sage screen, remember I have to refresh it by getting out of it. So remember I changed it from 80 to 70. There's the change. It's instant. Okay, so now my employee has finished entering their time. No one had to check their writing and try to type it in for them. No one had to receive all of those timesheets that they wrote up in Excel and have to retype them in. The employees are entering their own time, and the manager has the opportunity to approve them. So I showed you how you can go in and approve them from the web entry screen. This is where they would go from within Sage 100. And notice I have access to all employees. Right now, all I want to do is work on David Emerson. I have the time that he entered as well as the expenses. And I know this guy is pretty trustworthy. I'm just going to go ahead and accept them all. Or not. You can go one by one. And once you accept them, you're going to be able to see a management approval report. So you get a lot of opportunities to review before anything is actually invoiced. And keep in mind you have that secondary approval that I'm not using. So as you can see, in my report, and it's a very simple report, but remember these are crystal reports, so you can customize them at will. You can see that I'm showing my employee, if it was a type of time or expense, customer information, project, activity, units, and amount. Now that I approved everything, I can go ahead and post the information. Now, before I post, I just want to briefly go into accounts receivable and show you that I don't have anything in there yet for this particular client. Notice how, as I click everywhere, there's nothing there. When I come back, my invoice is going to post into accounts receivable. It will be there. Now, depending on where you'd like to process Timekeeper posting, the difference would be that if you post through Time and Billing, then you would have to continue your invoice process through Time and Billing, as I mentioned during our PowerPoint. So I'm going to go ahead and post, and I'm going to do my work in process selection. So you can see I'm going to choose 7 records. Let me choose March. And it takes a few seconds, you'll see, but now that we're going to go ahead and post, you'll see the information move all the way over to accounts receivable till we have our final invoicing. Notice how I have my time total, and I also have my expense total. Now, the reason that you see this message is because of the fact that my system is integrated to accounts receivable. If at some point you decided to integrate to other modules, it would also warn you here exactly where the information was being posted to. But don't look at my out of whack dates here. Usually I begin my presentations by letting everybody know I'm not a CPA, and that's why my dates are all out of whack all the time. I'm going to try to finish this as soon as possible. Okay, so that was done. If you did have any expense reimbursement, you'd go further. I'm not going to go there yet because I'd like to show you the accounts receivable portion of this. And I know we're running out of time, so this is it. Notice how the information regarding the customer I'm working on is there. And if you recall, the different entries that I had within Timekeeper are now available on my invoice data entry screen. And I'd like to just maximize this screen a little bit. You can see the powerful integration that we have with your Sage 100 modules. And I'm showing you only accounts receivable, but the same thing would apply to time and billing professional, job cost payroll, sales order. We have that same type of integration. We use the same files that you're familiar with within Sage and allow you to use them through Timekeeper. Here's my best explanation of Timekeeper. You look at it as a means of entry, accurate entry. You're saving not only on employees' time, you're saving on probable errors, you're saving on double entry, and we all know the statistics there. I mean, based on 100 employees, we've heard before the amount of money that you can save a year if you just have the employees enter their own time and have the managers approve it. So this is basically the gist of Timekeeper. One thing that I'd like to mention before we go on to questions is the area where you would register Timekeeper also includes spell check at no additional fee. So if you're interested, please be sure to keep this in mind, the Library Master extension. And that pretty much does it.